We have officially reached the end of the NFL season. That means a lot of these teams that are not making the playoffs are now entering their off-season era. We've already seen six coaches fired. That's actually the yearly average. Almost every year, there's going to be six coach openings. We might have some more in the future. Some of the ones that we expected, kind of like Zach Taylor and Mike McDaniel, ownership has already said that they're going to be sticking with them for at least one more year. So those guys will still be going next year. I have no doubt their seat is incredibly hot if they don't have much success next year. They'll most definitely be gone. But I want to get into the coaches that we had fired so far. I don't think there were any bad fires. I think the Falcons and the Browns ones. I think Raheem Morris and I think Kevin Stefanski are both solid coaches. I think they'll absolutely get another opportunity. Stefanski will probably get another opportunity next year. He'll probably get hired during the offseason. But just gonna go through each one. I want to start with Kevin Stefanski because I feel like that's the most controversial one. He obviously brought a lot of success to Cleveland after years and years of misery and pain. So there's a lot of love for Kevin Stefanski. He's obviously a great coach. I think he'll get another coaching gig immediately. He'll be one of the top hires for this round of coaching. Um, but I think the Browns, they really had no choice but to fire Stefanski. As much as he's done for the franchise, as great as he's been, um, just the whole Shador debacle was so bad. It was so bad. It starts from the very beginning of the season when Shador gets no first team reps. It doesn't even look like he's really even given a chance. And then we get into the season. Joe Flacco obviously was going to be their plan for this year. He didn't do great. He leaves and he goes to Cincinnati and he balls out. But then they go to Dylan Gabriel, who was the higher prospect, the higher draft pick. So it totally makes sense to me to commit to Gabriel first over Shador. But to commit to Gabriel and still not give Shador any first team reps, not to get him any kind of practice, kind of get him in any type of development at all. Absolutely nothing. Ownership obviously likes Shador. He should have seen that when ownership told him they needed to draft Shador. At least give him some kind of development. There was obviously no communication involved. And then when Shador finally gets his start, it continues to be messy. He had no first team reps. He stinks. His next game, he balls out. All of a sudden, there's these huge questions like, okay, if this is what this guy is capable of, then he has to have been given a shot, right? I mean, best QB performance by any Browns quarterback this year. Better than Dylan Gabriel in his 8 starts. Better than Joe Flacco in his 3 starts. So I really think it just had to happen. I mean, he fumbled the bag with Shador. Shador went out there with the wrong wristband to start a game and everything else. It was almost like sabotage. It really was. So even though I think Stefanski was a great coach, just because of the whole debacle that happened, ownership obviously liked Shador. It looks like he has the most potential of any of the QBs you had on the roster, and you gave him no development, no first team reps. Uh, I didn't really give him a shot at all, and then when he finally gets in there, it's still plagued by more incompetency and can't get the game plans right and everything else. So now the Browns are going to be forced to be committed to Shador next year. They have their draft pick is way too late. There's really only one quarterback in this NFL draft. I think Dante Moore will end up going back to college. So Mendoza's the only guy, and the Raiders are undoubtedly drafting Mendoza. So now they're going to be stuck with Shador at least to start next year. QB battle between Deshaun Watson and Shador. Maybe they sign some free agent guy to as a spot in case Shador doesn't work. But now that you have to commit to him next year, and you already had this whole debacle, I think it was the only choice that they had. They had to get rid of Kevin Stefanski. Too much behind the scenes going on. He did not prepare Shador at all. So he had to go. And the next one, Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris was fired after winning the last game, 8-9. If he didn't lose to the Jets, inexplicably lose to the Jets, they would have made the playoffs. They would have won the NFC South, and then Raheem Morris would not be fired. I think this one's another one. Definitely pulled the gun a little bit. It's not his fault that you paid Kirk Cousins off an Achilles injury, an insane amount of money, and then you draft a quarterback at the 8th pick in the first round. I don't think that's necessarily his fault, but they have a really solid pieces over there. You would hope that they would be able to get it together no matter who has quarterback. I mean, we saw what happens when you have a great rushing attack and you can at least get solid QB play. You can easily be a top contender. We saw it with Ryan Tannehill and the Titans when they had Derrick Henry. So I think because of that, it was more so he couldn't put together the pieces that he had. They had great options. Bijan Robinson's obviously amazing. Kyle Pitts was supposed to be really great, and he never was able to develop him. Um, so they have a lot of pieces, and they couldn't get it together. Raheem Morris could have made the playoffs, losing in that Jets game. Obviously, that was his nail in the coffin. They clearly already made this decision that he was going to be fired regardless because they beat the Saints anyway, and they fired him. But I think Raheem Morris will probably see again in the future. Maybe give him a couple years off. I don't think he's going to be super highly touted. Not a lot of people are going to be specifically targeting him as their future head coach. But there's just always so many openings, and I think he did at least a solid job. He has experience now. With his next team, he might be able to put something together. But I really think it's the GM to blame in that situation. First of all, you commit to Kirk Cousins with all this money. Straight off that Achilles injury, he can't move hardly at all in the first year. And then you move on to Michael Penix. This was his decision, so he is at least faulted for this. When you got a young guy like Penix, you don't have to commit to him. He's on that rookie deal. You're paying Kirk Cousins all this money. Once you commit to him, though, you can't go off of him. So in the next year, we see Kirk Cousins this year. He's playing a lot better. There's a lot more mobility. Achilles is definitely an injury that takes a lot of time to come back to, especially to come back to at least 90%. And Kirk Cousins looked a lot better this year now that he can move a lot better after recovering from that Achilles injury. So I think that was a really bad mistake on his part from a coaching perspective. If he stuck with Kirk Cousins at least for the first season, they didn't make the playoffs anyway, then they would be able to start Kirk Cousins this year. They might have had more success. Michael Penix hasn't been very great. Michael Penix would be able to develop in the background more. There wouldn't be so much controversy between Kirk Cousins and drafting that quarterback. He would have just sat there. I mean, that's what the Packers did for years. You spend your first round pick, they sit for a couple years, they learn, they develop, and then they ball out. Raheem Morris really fumbled that situation, at least this year. Kirk Cousins should have been given the full reins last year, see what he could do after the Achilles injury, after he recovers from that, and see how that goes. So I think that was really the nail in the coffin for him. I think he's a solid coach, though. I think he'll get another opportunity somewhere else. But when you have that many pieces, you can't put it together, and then you create this huge controversy between your quarterbacks and everything else, especially after the franchise already committed so much to Kirk Cousins. I think that was a really big slip, and that's probably why he ended up going. Now the rest of these coaches, I don't think we're going to be seeing any of these guys get another head coaching gig. Maybe Brian Dable in the future. He obviously showed some promise with the Giants, won Coach of the Year that 1 year with Daniel Jones. But Dable's still highly sought as a coordinator. If he can have some success as a coordinator, there were some floating around the Raiders getting him and Clint Kubiak as their head coach. I could see it, but he's still highly regarded as an offensive coordinator. No doubt if he goes to some franchise and their offense does succeed and they perform, I have no doubt that he will be getting another opportunity as a head coach in the future. It's definitely going to take a couple years because there's still some really bad memories with Dable right now. He did a lot of funny things, but I still think he's a solid coach. Giants are kind of a dumpster fire. It's really hard to be successful there. You really got to have everything buttoned up. Obviously, they have Jackson Dart, so they want to start fresh. We'll see who they end up targeting. Giants, I would say they're not a terrible landing spot as a head coach, so they should be able to get some really solid quality of a coach in there. But still, they've been pretty bad for so long. It's kind of scary to have to coach for the Giants, especially because we're probably going to be seeing a first-year head coach there. So definitely not the top spot that I would go if I was looking for a head coaching position, but I do think Brian Dable eventually will get another opportunity. Now, the rest of these guys, I think they're done. Pete Carroll, he's old. He totally ruined the Raiders by obviously advocating for his guy Geno. There's a lot of success, and now Geno is terrible. Geno did lock them up the first pick, however, and I do think Mendoza, he's a really solid prospect. He's got everything you want in a QB prospect. He was elite in college. He was a winner in college. Brought Indiana from being irrelevant to being incredibly relevant. Him and Curt Cignetti were totally a marriage. So I think it was just purely the Geno Smith thing with Pete Carroll. He's really old. He's not going to get another head coaching gig or anything. But I did think it was kind of surprising they got rid of him so quick. The Raiders have been another team that have been pretty bad, but the Raiders had more success with Antonio Pierce than they did with Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll advocated for Geno, and Geno was one of the worst quarterbacks this year. So I think that was really his undoing. And can't really give him too much of a leash when you have even worse season than you did the year before over the coach that you can, and the guy that he advocated to get in was one of the worst QBs in the NFL. So can't blame the Raiders for firing Pete Carroll. It is sad though. I really like Pete Carroll. He's a legend, probably a future Hall of Famer, but it didn't work out with the Raiders. Just old. And then Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals. Another kind of unlucky situation. I don't know if it's Gannon or if it's Kyler. Kyler obviously has shown he's not incredibly successful in the NFL. He'll probably still get another starting gig somewhere else. Jets are in dire need for a QB, and there is no QB in this draft, so we might see Kyler go to the Jets. There's lots of teams that are QB needy right now, so I think Kyler will get another opportunity. But it was just really awkward with Gannon. All the interviews and like the in-meeting snapshots that we got, the videos of him and the team meetings and stuff, it didn't look like the players rallied around him at all. It was really hard to watch stuff. He was just awkward in his interviews. Definitely not like a natural leader, especially if a bunch of alphas like NFL players are. You definitely have to be able to get their personalities right. You have to coach them a specific way. Even though I think he totally knows ball, knows what he's doing, to be able to get these guys to buy into your vision and to follow you, you got to have more of those traits that they're going to want to follow. You got to be more charismatic. People like you more. Gannon was never that guy. I'm sure Gannon will get an opportunity as a coordinator if he can be incredibly successful as a coordinator. Maybe in 5 years we see him get another head coaching gig, but it was just awkward. It's kind of like Josh McDaniels when he became a head coach. Fantastic offensive coordinator. Obviously, he just balled out with the Patriots. He elevated Drake May to an incredible level. I think Drake May should be MVP this year, but you just can't be awkward. You just can't, especially as a head coach. A lot of your job is purely getting the team ready to play and managing these guys. You don't have a ton of game plan uh, thought or play calling. Now, a lot of them take play calling duties, but I think head coaches like Dan Campbell before he took over the play calling, I think that's the way you should go as a head coach. You want to be the leader. You want to be able to manage everything. You want to be able to see what's going on when you're calling the plays. You can't do too much of that. So maybe in the future we see Jonathan Gannon. I don't think so. He just doesn't have the personality for it. And then the worst head coach of them all, Brian Callahan, still a super young guy. He might get another opportunity. I thought he at least had the charisma, unlike Gannon did. So he could essentially get another opportunity if we see some success as a coordinator in the league. But it was another messy situation. You had the Levis and then Cam Ward. It was really awkward with Levis. Obviously, that wasn't his guy. He wasn't there when they drafted Levis. Levis had a lot of potential, though. Great athlete, great arm, but couldn't really develop Levis. Levis obviously made hilarious mistakes. So I can't fault him for the Levis situation, but then when you got Cam Ward, that team was just uninspired. Cam Ward, honestly, with what he had to deal with, played solid. I think Cam Ward eventually will get some really good development out there. But Callahan, he just couldn't get the team buttoned up. They had no offensive weapons. I can't really blame him too much for all that, but I really think it was just the Levis and Cam Ward situation. It was just a little awkward. And then the Titans were just absolutely terrible and then somehow didn't manage to get the first overall pick. That's hilarious. I think they totally were the worst team. Cam Ward got it together later in the season, and this happened after firing Brian Callahan, so that's even more of an indictment on him. Maybe the guy will succeed in the future, we'll see, but he's definitely young, so he has an opportunity. So I think Dable will definitely get another head coaching job eventually. He's an awesome coordinator, highly sought after. I think Raheem Morris will probably get another opportunity, maybe in like 10 years in the future. Definitely have to let the Falcons debacle and everything else get behind him. But Stefanski, absolutely, I think he's getting a head coaching job this year. I think Stefanski's a great coach. He had to go with the Browns. The Shador situation was just fumbled so incredibly bad. He had to go. But he had some real success in Cleveland. Cleveland's got to love him, regardless of how it ended. He brought them from 20 years of pain to actual being playoff contenders and contending for their division. So still deserves a lot of respect for that. No doubt he'll be a head coach somewhere else. Just had to go with the Browns. Wasn't working out. Uh, if you watched this far, I appreciate you. Subscribe to the show. I do sports podcasts all the time. Got some other stuff on my channel if you want to check it out. I do NFL, I do college football. Might end up getting into the basketball now that football is starting to tone down. We'll see how that goes, but I got other stuff on there if that's your gig. But I appreciate you. If you agree, leave a like on the video. Um, Let me know your thoughts on who's a good coach, who's going to get another opportunity in this league. Who do you think is going to fill these roles? Who do you think else is going to get fired? I was kind of shocked Aaron Glenn didn't get fired after a historically bad season from the Jets. The fact that they even won 3 games was a statement in itself, but they're going to give him another opportunity. Jets are a dumpster fire, so you got to give it a little bit of time to breathe. We'll see how Aaron Glenn does next year. So I think that might be it for all the fires. We'll see if there's some thing that comes out. I feel like most teams already had their decisions made. So the fact that we haven't seen any other coaches get fired probably won't. Maybe Jim Harbaugh with the Ravens, but I think that would be a mistake. So we'll see. But I appreciate you guys for listening. Y'all have a good one. Check out my new stuff when it comes out, and appreciate you.